Cycling for me has never been about the bikes. They've only ever been the prerequisite tool. I do not see just a bike race, I see riders on heroic journeys and warriors doing battle. At one point, cycling was the most popular sport in Europe because newspapers told magnificent tales about epic races and crafted the great champions into legends. But with the advent of television, cycling lost some of its mystique, and that golden age of journalism and narration has perished. So now let us try to return some romance to the beautiful sport. Let us praise and give glory to phenomenal performances to be remembered for decades to come. Let us dwell on the moments that inspire and move us. Let us chronicle the rise and fall of heroes. Let us chart these life-changing journeys, these cycling odysseys. All right, welcome back to Cycling Odysseys. I'm your host, Patrick Santino. What are we doing today? All right, this is the first of the last big, well, this one's not as big. But anyways, this is the first of the last 3 tour stages. I'm winding them all up in one day. We're recording all these. There's a bunch together. I'm still sick, but we truck through. Anyway, so this was finally a low-key stage. Like, weird that I'm even asking for that, right? But this one was, and it was still actually very good too. It was just kind of tricky, interesting, not what you would really expect, not a standard sprint. Actually, it didn't even end in a sprint, spoiler. So anyways, I could just more so look forward to the final test tomorrow, which is what I have been wanting to do on a couple of the stages, but now this was finally an opportunity that I got. So I did that. And I give a lot of my thoughts on the structure of the tour. Controversial takes, we'll see. You guys tell me. But anyways, I'll explicate on that more after this. All right, here we go. Thanks for listening. Let's do this. The tour is winding down as it traditionally should. Tour de France 2020, Stage 19, Bourg-en-Bresse to Campagnol, 166.5 kilometers. Sprinters attack, but Anderson escapes in a counterattack to take a second stage. The stage was won for the sprinters today. The tour came out of the mountains and headed north towards Paris. It was a relatively dull day with only Remy Cavagna of Deceuninck Quickstep in the break, and he was brought back after the intermediate sprint. Sam Bennett of Deceuninck Quickstep notably finished ahead of Peter Sagan of Bora-Hansgrohe again. But with 35 kilometers to go, the peloton was all back together, and riders tried fresh new escape attacks from the peloton. It was then that we saw a group of all the major sprinters and top classics men on the tour remarkably make the winning move, except for Caleb Ewan of Lotto Soudal and Wout van Aert of Jumbo-Visma. With such a strong and loaded group, it was a done deal that this would go to the line. Powerful names like Peter Sagan, Sam Bennett, Matteo Trentin, and Greg Van Avermaet of CCC, Oliver Naesen of AG2R, Luca Mezgec of Mitchelton Scott, Luke Rowe of Ineos were there with many others. Lotto Soudal rode for a few kilometers for Ewan, but quickly gave up hope. Trentin and Sagan both had an interest in riding away from Sam Bennett in order to claw back some green jersey points. On a small unclassified climb, Trentin launched a large attack and Sagan responded, but Bennett rode right in his wheel to mark every move his top competitor would do. Trentin's attack was massive and put many people into the red to bridge the gap. But when Trentin sat up knowing he had no gap, it was Søren Kragh Andersen of Sunweb, yes, the rider who won in Lyon, who counterattacked the group. When no one went with him or quickly responded to chase him down, that was it. Stage over. You see, when you give an inch to a cyclist like Andersen, he will take a mile. Once again, it was Sagan himself who had brought back and neutralized the last attack, and thus it was the fault of many others to not attempt to cover or even ride with Andersen. For the last 15K, Andersen built up a minute advantage over the ultimately uncohesive group of strong chasing sprinters. Thus, Andersen took a second stage win. Congratulations to the young man, and chapeau to Sunweb's third brilliant stage win. All very well earned. Behind, Sagan, Trentin, and Bennett all rode together, with Bennett marking everything, and at the line he came across first to take more points than his biggest rivals. Thus now Bennett is on 319 points, while Sagan is only at 264 and Trentin at 250. Bennett has all but sewn up the green jersey competition. The tour surely feels like it's heading for Paris now after such a transitional stage. Yes, the Olympian and Titanic clashes are behind us now. After 19 stages of racing, a hierarchy has been established, and who will be the winner of the 107th Tour de France is fairly evident. Just to interject, I can't believe I actually wrote that. There is a final test tomorrow, but Primož Roglič of Jumbo-Visma has done quite a bit of the heavy lifting already to ensure his Tour victory. Some novice fans shall ask, well, what is the point now? Why continue to watch? Oh, dear readers, this is one of the unappreciated beauties of the Tour. In many recent editions, not even appreciated by Christian Prudhomme, the Tour's race director who plans the broad strokes of the route each year. Despite the Tour's unorthodox opening on the Côte d'Azur in Nice, where the race entered into proper mountains on only the second stage, now its finish is winding down and harkens back to tours in bygone eras. Think about the geography of France, dear readers. Paris is in the north, where France is flat. Naturally, if this were to be a real loop or lap of France, inevitably the race must come out of the mountains and travel the flats to make it home. Yet in recent decades, the Tour has not bothered to attempt to make its way to Paris. Instead, Prudhomme has opted for an epic penultimate day, followed by a train or plane ride to Paris that evening or next morning for the final Sunday coronation process on the Champs-Élysées. I must admit, I was eager and would still never refuse to see an epic Alpe d'Huez decide the Tour on the penultimate day like in 2015. But the more I reflect on the essence of the Tour de France, I do not think I find such a sensational stage appropriate for a final test. Dear readers, I am starting to love the conventionality and predictability of the Tour de France. Again, it goes back to France's geography. The mountains are in the south, and if the race is to finish in Paris, as it always shall, then it is appropriate that it at least attempt to make its way north, as it is this year. Leave the epic and exciting penultimate mountainous queen stages that turn the GC on its head to the Giro d'Italia and Vuelta a España, where mountain passes abound near the typical finishing cities of Milan and Madrid. It is part of the Tour's glory and prestige that it should be a constrainingly regal and even predictable affair. Perhaps it is because we did not get it this year, but I am starting to fall in love once again, or more than ever before, with a traditional Tour de France route. A flattish first week with many sprints and some sort of time trial. Then the race opens up in the first big mountain range, Pyrenees or Alps, depending on the route, followed by an overarching transition to the other big mountain range, the other of the Alps or Pyrenees. And then the race should have some sort of falling action as it definitively makes its way and looks towards Paris. Sprinkle in lumpy hilly stages, breakaway stages, the massive Centrale, the Vosges and Jura Mountains, the cobbles of Roubaix, however the race director sees fit each year. Even end with a penultimate mountain stage, so long as the race is heading in the direction of Paris. Is this an audacious move on my part, me, an American, telling the French how to organize their own race? Do not misunderstand me, dear readers. From stage to stage, this has been a very great tour, but I claim that this is despite its unorthodoxy and not because of it. This year, the stages were all well crafted and designed better than ever to make for an exciting route. But at the beginning, they overtly did not come in the correct order. I love the idea that the tour should be a slow build-up to a big climax, followed by a slow winding down process where the overall picture becomes clear. On either side of the grand climax, I hope there would be many exciting stages, while at the same time the tour keeps a clear sense of an overall extremely thorough grinding and sifting process throughout the race. The beginning of this tour did not correctly have the slow build, but with yesterday's lower key mountain stage and today's archetypal transition stage, this tour is nailing the falling action. Keep the racing spicy while fitting the beautiful conventional narrative. Now, of course, I would be happy if the tour always came down to the wire, to the penultimate day, but it should always be after whittling down most of the competitors throughout the entire race. A fabulous Queen stage should never come on the penultimate day of the Tour, but somewhere about 2/3 of the way through, as it was this year, either on the Grand Colombier stage or on the Col de Luz on stage 17. Yes, this is the regality of the Tour. The champion should slowly rise to the top or slowly be sculpted like Michelangelo's Pietà. Never should the Tour winner pop out from behind the wizard's curtain on the penultimate stage, such as happens at the Giro or the Vuelta. Such events are wild and beloved and forever cherished, but they do not belong at the end of the Tour de France. In an ideal tour, like in 1989, the favorites should be whittled down over the course of the race to 1, 2, perhaps 3 at most until the penultimate stage. And on the penultimate stage, making its way to Paris, where hills or mountains are not always available, there must be one final test. If the race is near the Massif Central or Vosges or Jura mountains, then by all means, take advantage. But if it is crossing the meadows and fields to Paris, then have the final test be against the clock. This year, we shall be treated to an ingenious combination of both. Tomorrow's penultimate stage will be a time trial that finishes at the top of the Category 1 climb, La Planche de Belfi. Ah, yes, tomorrow's stage shall surely live up to that mythical and dramatic name for the Tour's traditional final test against the clock, the Race of Truth. Primož Roglič is one of the finest time trialists in the world and also a very fine climber. It will be shocking if he cedes over a minute or any time at all to Tadej Pogačar of UAE, who has only ever beaten him once in a time trial. Sorry to interject again. Also funny to think about. Now that said, that time trial win was from their most recent duel at the Slovenian Nationals back in June, so perhaps we should not underestimate Pogačar of pulling off anything. All sorts of mechanical issues can happen as well. It will be interesting to see how many of the riders will play the route. There are about 30 kilometers of relative flat first, followed by the 5.9 kilometer climb that averages an 8.5% gradient. The mountain itself shall be discussed more in depth tomorrow, but it gets very steep in the final kilometer. Perhaps steep enough at the top and for its entirety that many of the riders shall wish to do a bike swap at the base of La Planche de Belfi, from their Aero time trial bikes to their familiar road bikes that are lighter and much easier for climbing. But the yellow jersey is not the only thing to be decided tomorrow. Is our beloved hero Superman Lopez of Astana podium position safe? He leads Richie Porte of Trek Segafredo by over 90 seconds, but Superman's record in TTs is spotty at best. He has shipped minutes in Giro and Vuelta TTs when he absolutely should not have. Additionally and interestingly, this TT will decide the King of the Mountains this year. A time split will be taken at the bottom of the climb, and the 5 fastest times strictly up the climb itself will be awarded the 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2 King of the Mountains points. Richard Carapaz of Ineos Grenadiers leads Tadej Pogačar by 2 points in the King of the Mountains competition, with Roglič 7 points behind Carapaz, unless I have read the scoring wrong and there are double points available for the summit finish climb. These 3 riders are the only ones mathematically still in contention for the polka dot jersey. Surely the advantage shall go to Carapaz, who cares nothing about his total TT time. Surely he will sandbag for the first 30 kilometers of flat and then absolutely rip it up the climb to try and set the best time. While behind, Pogačar and Roglič surely will have to ride the entire TT full gas and probably not have enough juice left to blitz it up the final climb for a great time in pursuit of KOM points. But who knows what will happen. 19 days of racing are in all the riders' legs. Dear readers, the ingredients are here for the makings of a good time trial. For the key to a good TT is the overall race implications weighing down on it, or else time trials can quickly become boring affairs. The yellow jersey is likely clinched barring catastrophe or epic collapse, as well as second place in the white jersey, which are both held by Pogačar. Sorry to note again, funny. funny stuff. Green is all but sewn up as well, but the podiums are not locked up. nor the ordering of the rest of the top 10. And though Carapaz must be favored for polka dots, the contest is not straightforwardly laid out. Yes, perhaps not for all, but for some or even many, it shall be a fitting final test for this Tour de France. Ah, yes, tomorrow is the race of truth. All right, so that was stage 19. Don't have much to say on the stage itself, even though, I mean, it was quite an interesting, powerful group of sprinters and classics guys there at the end. That was actually pretty cool to see and unexpected. Yeah. Anyways, I was tempted to write my Tour de France, route preview with this, but I haven't gotten around to doing that, so that's not happening. But I should have done that the very weekend it came out, but I was tired at that point, and I haven't gotten around to it, obviously. So it'll have to come out at some point. But anyways, the route this year, because, all right, so clearly in this preview, I was basically saying, I like a traditional Tour de France route. I want a flat opening week, tons of sprint fests, throw a little tricky things in there, but this should be pretty standard. And then you get to the first big mountain range, and it should be like a couple big days in there, and then the transition days between, sure, whatever, and then the big mountain range, 2 or 3 days there or something. And that's the other thing is all the King of the Mountains, I want people to target that again, and I want 3 or 4 of them to just go at it in those 2 mountain ranges, and it should really only be decided there. Stop with this crap with a bunch of 2s and 3s along the route. Yeah, I think we got to put more emphasis on the 1s and the HCs again, beyond categories. Actually, I don't know. That might be premature for me to say, but I could be swayed on that. Anyways, the route this year coming up in 2021, it looks so traditional. It's pretty unbelievable. It's almost like, did they listen? Did Christian Prudhomme somehow find my preview? I mean, there's no way he did, and I don't even know if he speaks English, but yeah, good for him to actually go back to that, because I will say I don't like this year was pretty cool with the opening mountain stuff, and they had mountain stages early on, but they didn't decide the race. I like just the winding down part, it should be a big lap, and the big decisive parts are in the south, and surprising final test at the end, which, spoiler, of course, we got this year, which is awesome. Speaking of that, I was talking about the race of truth. Obviously, stage 20 the next day was the greatest race of truth ever. Now, actually, that's a debatable point, but I make my case tomorrow why that one was the greatest race of truth ever. And so that's what's coming up. We're going to do stage 20 in the next episode, stage 21 in the episode afterwards. And follow me on Twitter, Cycling Odysseys. Follow the blog post, cyclingodysseys.com. What else? Gmail. Send me an email, cyclingodysseys@gmail.com. And subscribe, leave a 5-star review. I'll start reading out I have been reading out the 5-star reviews, but I'll read them out as soon as you put it up, man. All right, thanks for listening, everybody. Vive le cyclisme.